test, captioning test, check, 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 check. Yeah, let me turn that up a little bit. Captioning test, check, 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 check. Oh, yep, I can see it.
Curry, do you know that there's anything on the consent calendar that you're going to want to have a bigger discussion about? Okay.
Okay, we will reconvene the special meeting. Mr. City Attorney, is there any final action to report out?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor. The City Council gave direction to the City Attorney to intervene in 2 cases.
Hold on one moment.
All right, we got him.
Okay. We were having technical difficulties, but I think we have it now.
Yeah, we're good.
Should I repeat,
Oh,
Madam Mayor?
yes. Yeah, I didn't realize that was the extent of your
Understood.
comments.
Thank you, Madam. The City Council gave direction to the City Attorney to intervene in 2 cases.
Okay. We will adjourn the special meeting and call to order the regular meeting of the Folsom City Council on Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Council members Howell.
Here.
Kozlowski.
Here.
Aquino.
Here.
And Vice Mayor Sheldon will be participating by teleconference, and Councilmember Gaylord is absent.
Okay, if you'd all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any agenda updates?
You do. You have additional additional information regarding item number 8. And that information has been made available to the council members and available to the public at the back table.
Okay, please call the first item.
Your first item this evening is scheduled presentation. This is a presentation regarding regional housing needs assessment, the schedule, and housing element update. This will involve the plan process and schedule for the upcoming housing element update.
Madam Mayor, maybe I skipped it. There should be business from the
Yeah,
floor.
do we have any business from the floor?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody here want to speak on something that's not on the agenda? Okay. So we'll go ahead with our scheduled presentation. And just a favor of my colleagues, if we could hold all of our questions and comments until the presentation is done. That will also allow Vice Mayor Sheldon an opportunity to follow along a little bit better, I think. So who's making the presentation?
Pam, are you introducing this item? No.
Yes, sorry. So this is the,
Rena.
Rena, yes. We have Chelsea Payne. She will be giving the presentation from Ascent Environmental. She will be working with us over the next year and a half on our housing element update. And you should, she's a familiar face to you because she led the way on the, as a consultant for the general plan update. So thank you, Chelsea.
All right, thank you very much, Pam. Good evening. Again, I'm Chelsea Payne with Ascent Environmental. And as Pam said, I've been working with the City of Folsom over the years on the general plan update and on the last 2 housing element updates. So this is my 3rd housing element with Folsom. So I have some history working here, some familiarity with the issues in the past, but we do have some new challenges entering this housing element. So we're going to start to talk about some of those challenges here tonight.
Chelsea, if you could just make sure you're talking right into the microphone so that Vice Mayor Sheldon is able to hear us, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Is that better? Sure.
Thank you.
So first, a little bit of background for those that are new to the housing element. The housing element is an element of your general plan, but it has some unique requirements that set it apart from the rest of the general plan. It's the only element of the general plan where the state sets the schedule for when it needs to be updated, and there's a very specific 8-year planning period. So your general plan has a much longer planning horizon. Your housing element is looking at your housing needs over an 8-year period. The housing element that we're starting to update now, this next one, has an adoption deadline of May 31st, 2021, and it'll serve a planning period through 2029. The housing element is the only element of the general plan that's reviewed by the state for compliance with state law. And while state law has some requirements for general plans, the requirements for housing elements are just very detailed, very technical, and very lengthy. There are much more requirements that go into the housing element. And then at its core, the housing element is the city's plan for accommodating your fair share of the regional housing needs. So that's where we will be talking about what the regional housing needs assessment is in just a minute. But first, an overview, just a look at our schedule. This is our preliminary schedule for the project. We're kicking off the project here this month, getting started. We're going to be getting a project website up pretty soon where you'll be able to go to get all the information about this project. We're here at the council meeting tonight, and we're going to be doing some initial community outreach, working with, talking to different housing stakeholders in the community, talking with the community at large, to get an understanding of what the major housing needs are and what some of the opportunities are to address in this housing element. We've already gotten to work working on the analysis, updating the background information, starting to look at the sites inventory, and our plan is to publish the housing element in August of this year. So between now and August, we have quite a bit of work to do to look at what land you have available for housing, and we're going to be talking about the need to rezone some sites. So between now and August, we want to develop what that rezone strategy is going to be, and we're going to mention that here tonight. After we publish the draft housing element, we'll be coming back to we'll be going to the Planning Commission and then coming back to the City Council before we send the housing element to the state for their review. So we want to get the City Council's blessing, get your input and feedback at that time, and make sure it reflects what you want to be in the housing element before we go to the state for them to conduct their review. The state then has 60 days to review the housing element and comment on it, and we will get a comment letter from the state, and we'll be having to address any comments, working with the state. And then after we've satisfied all of the state's comments and concerns, we'll be coming back to the City Council at the end of the process for adoption. And we plan on wrapping that up by April. But again, the adoption deadline is May 31st, 2021. So that's the date we're going to be trying to hit for final adoption. So I'll talk for a minute about the regional housing needs assessment. This is really a core, one of the core requirements of the housing element. So this process starts with the state of California issues for each region of the state. They issue a regional housing needs determination, and that's the number of housing units that the region as a whole needs to accommodate. So for this next planning period, which is 2021 to 2029, the need for the whole SACOG region, or the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, the whole Sacramento region has to accommodate about 154,000 housing units. And SACOG, along with every other metropolitan planning organization, is required by law to develop a methodology to distribute that regional need, so that 154,000 units, to every jurisdiction within the SACOG region. And SACOG has developed, and the SACOG board has adopted that methodology, and Folsom's share of the RHNA is 6,363 housing units. So that's the target number of housing units that you need to demonstrate you have enough land to accommodate over the 8-year planning period. And that target number of housing units is broken down by different income categories, those that are shown here, from very low income households, low income, moderate income, and above moderate income. And what this table shows is what your current regional housing needs allocation, your current RHNA, for the 2013 to 2021 period. You can see that your current number is 4,633 housing units. And collectively, we refer to the very low income and the low income. We collectively refer to that as the lower income. And the last time your lower income regional housing needs allocation was 2,072 units. But this time around, you're faced with a target of, you have to accommodate 3,567 lower income units. So that's a 72% increase. So there are a lot of reasons why your RHNA has increased, and then the lower income proportion of that RHNA has also increased. So some of the reasons that you're looking at a higher number, first of all, the last regional housing needs assessment was done during a recession. We were in the foreclosure crisis. So when we were talking about housing needs, there was a much lower need. There was a really high vacancy rate. So there were a lot of, just that alone is one of the main reasons that the target is higher this time around. But there were also some changes in state law that require the state to also account for some of your existing housing needs in the region. So they look at rates of overcrowding and cost burden of your existing households and adds additional units to account for those issues. So it's really the vacancy. There's a much lower vacancy rate now, so we, as a region, need to plan for more housing to get to a healthier vacancy rate and then account for some of these new requirements.
How do they actually account for overcrowding of existing households?
There's some data available by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. They collect data from the census. They do some analysis from the census data on overcrowding in the region. So that really comes from census data, or American Community Survey data. There were also some new factors, some new requirements of state law that affected the methodology that SACOG developed. So the methodology this time around needed to explicitly account for greenhouse gas emissions reductions, which that didn't really result in a higher number for Folsom. But some of these other factors, a balance between low-wage jobs and affordable housing, that ended up really pushing up the city's proportion of the lower-income RHNA. And then the requirement to affirmatively further fair housing. And what this requirement did in the methodology, it pushed more of the lower income housing need to communities that were considered higher resource areas. So putting a lower proportion of the lower income need in areas of low resource or high segregation or high poverty areas, and giving a higher low income number to those communities that are considered higher resource, so essentially higher income areas. So that's why you see the city of Folsom's lower income target go quite a bit higher this time around. So what we need to do to show how we can accommodate the city's RHNA, we look at all of your vacant and underutilized sites that are zoned for housing or for mixed use. And those sites that allow for housing at 30 units per acre are considered to accommodate your lower income housing need. And I'm focusing on the lower income housing need because almost every community has enough single-family zoning or lower density zoning to accommodate the above moderate income need. That's almost never an issue for the community. It really comes down to, do you have enough high-density multifamily land to accommodate your lower income housing need? So we look at all of the available sites, vacant, underutilized sites, that allow for 30 units per acre. And here in Folsom, that includes the designations or the zones that are shown here. So your R4 zone, your general apartment district, your mixed-use district. Within the Folsom plan area, that's your multifamily high density and your mixed use. And then there are some new designations that were introduced in the general plan that we're going to be looking at this time around. That includes the East Bidwell mixed-use overlay, and then within your transit priority areas as well. But those last two were not included in your last housing element. We'll be looking at some new sites in those areas. So working with your staff, we did some preliminary analysis to try to figure out, okay, based on the sites that are in the current housing element that allow 30 units per acre, and looking at what your target, your RHNA is. So we wanted to figure out what our potential shortfall is going to be, and then in turn what the rezone obligation is. Because at the end of the day, if you do your analysis and you don't have enough capacity to meet your RHNA, the city is then obligated to rezone sites to higher density at 30 units per acre to accommodate that lower income RHNA. So again, your lower income RHNA is 3,567 units. Our preliminary estimate is that you have capacity for about 2,826 units. which would make the shortfall about 741 units. And that, and I said 30 units per acre. The rezone is actually, we have to count at 20 units per acre. We would be rezoning for at 20 units per acre, minimum density. That equals 37 acres in a rezone obligation. Again, this is very preliminary. There are a lot of factors that are going to affect this number. We don't know. There are a lot of new requirements about the size of sites, whether we can count an underutilized site or not. So we're going to be working with the state, and really they're going to scrutinize every single site that's in the inventory. But this is about what we're seeing now based on the sites that are in the current housing element for the additional acreage that we need to identify. Now, this doesn't include sites within the East Bidwell mixed-use overlay, and we do think we can find some additional sites within that overlay zone. That was an overlay designation that was introduced in the general plan, and the city right now is working on a zoning code update and developing the zoning standards for that. And also within the transit priority areas. That was something introduced in the general plan, and the zoning standards are being worked out now through the zoning code update. So we hope to find some more sites within those areas, but we do know that we're going to have to look elsewhere in the community to find some sites to upzone to a higher density residential or rezone from non-residential to residential. But we also want to draw your attention to the no net loss requirement, because it's not good enough to just meet your RENA. The 37 acres is what we see is needed to just meet the number, not to exceed the number. But it's really important to also make sure that you have a surplus capacity. We want to have as much surplus as we possibly can, because there's a requirement that the city maintain adequate sites for lower income housing throughout the 8-year planning period between now and 2029. And so when we do the sites inventory, all of your vacant underutilized sites that are zoned for high density housing, those all get counted towards your lower income RENA. But we know that not every high density site gets built with low income housing. A lot of that will get built as market rate housing because there's demand for market rate multifamily as well. And so as you're approving projects on those sites identified for lower income housing, you have to account for that loss of potential units for lower income. So if you approve a market rate project on one of your 10-acre sites, then that automatically, you lose those potential units from your lower income, and there's a requirement that you identify and make available a replacement site within 180 days. And that's not a lot of time when you think about the amount of time it takes to process a rezone and do CEQA analysis. 180 days is really not a long time. So we want to set you up to have surplus capacity so that you don't have to do this, find a replacement site every time you're approving a project on a higher density site. I also want to point out, though, that it's important to know that the burden to find those replacement sites falls on the local jurisdiction and not on the developer. So if a developer of a market rate project comes in and wants to build on a high density site, you cannot compel, it's not the responsibility of that developer to find the replacement site or to build at the inventoried income level. You can't compel them to build a 100% affordable project there, and you can't deny a project because it's not low income. And again, the burden is on the city to find that replacement site. So we want to make sure that we build in a little bit of a buffer and when we look at the sites in the housing element. So some of the strategies that we're going to be exploring to meet the RENA, again, like I said, we want to build in a buffer of extra capacity, and what that is, I've just threw out a target of maybe 20 to 30% to account for the no net loss. We're going to identify sites within the East Bidwell mixed-use overlay and look at the surrounding transit stations and see if there are some real opportunity sites within those areas. We want to talk to some property owners that would be willing to rezone or upzone some sites. We're going to see if there's any potential on surplus public lands, maybe state lands or other surplus lands, because there are some new state law requirements around making information available about surplus state lands. The state's going through a mapping exercise of mapping all of those. And as local agencies dispose of surplus public lands, the first right of refusal goes to affordable developers. So the state's really focusing on this, and we need to make sure we're exploring all opportunities there. And we're hoping to really rezone these sites in conjunction with the housing element update, to do it now and try to be as efficient in the process as we can. And then we're going to be looking at some policy options as well. There have been some changes in case law and some changes in state law around inclusionary housing. So we'll be bringing some questions to the City Council about potential changes to the inclusionary housing ordinance. That's one potential strategy for meeting the RHNA. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Chelsea. Questions? We'll go Carrie first. Ernie wants to go last.
At this point, well, I guess I'll go with the second question first. You were talking about 30 units per acre, and I think it's important for anybody that's watching this or sitting in the room tonight to understand that 30 units per acre is significantly higher density than what we were looking at during the affordable housing discussions last time we did this. So that's an increase in density. So has that increase in density been considered for the existing multifamily zone property? That's one question. And then the second question is, you were talking about the 30 units per acre, but then in the calculation of the 37 acres, you said that you were looking at 20 units per acre. So where did the 20 come from?
Yeah, no, good question. I kind of glossed over that pretty quickly. So the 30 unit per acre, there's something called the default density standard that's written into state law. And every jurisdiction in the state has a default density standard, depending on what type of jurisdiction you are. If you're in a rural area, the density that's deemed appropriate for affordable housing is maybe 10 or 15 units per acre. If you're in a suburban area, 20 units per acre is a density that the state will say, yes, if your zoning allows 20 units per acre, that's adequate for lower income housing. But the city of Folsom falls within the Sacramento metro area, and you're actually not classified as suburban, but you're classified as a metropolitan area. And so the state will accept sites that are zoned at 30 units per acre as appropriate for lower income housing. So the zones that we look at have to at least allow 30 units per acre. That's not a minimum. Right now, your multifamily high density allows 20 to 30 units per acre, 30 being the upper end of the density.
Which was not something that we chose to do. That was forced upon us by the state.
That's right. It used to be lower. The new 30 unit per acre density standard went into effect with the last housing element, so it's a relatively new requirement as of 2013. It used to be 20 units per acre used to be the density that was acceptable here. The Sacramento metro region grew into a bigger region, and Folsom got reclassified, so now 30 units per acre is the density. So your zoning has to allow 30 units per acre. So that's right. The last cycle, the city made a global change to your multifamily high density zone to allow that 30 units per acre. The 20 units per acre gets into the rezone obligation. So after you've gone through the process of identifying sites, if you have a shortfall and you're required to rezone sites, those sites that you rezone must have a minimum density standard of 20 units per acre. So right now your multifamily high density zone goes 20 to 30. So as long as you would rezone you would meet that 20 unit per acre minimum density, and that's across the state. Any city that has an obligation to rezone must rezone sites to have a minimum density of 20 units per acre. And HCD calculates your rezone obligation based on 20 units per acre.
Well, doesn't that effectively build in that buffer that you were talking about?
In some ways, it could. Yeah, because on your other sites, we'll be counting your capacity. We won't be counting it based on the maximum 30 because we have to base the capacity calculation on sort of a realistic expected density. So we have to look at what other projects get approved at over the past year. And usually The calculation we did was at 80% of the maximum, so I think that's 24 units per acre is what we calculated the capacity on.
Okay.
And the state scrutinizes your assumptions and your capacity, and 80% of maximum is usually an acceptable standard.
Okay. And another point of clarification, when you've been talking about this, I just don't want anybody to misunderstand. Your presentation was kind of more along the lines that the city does this, and I don't want anybody to think that this, because the city basically has very little land that we actually own.
Right.
And none of it right now is zoned for housing. So what we're talking about is not property that the city of Folsom owns, it's property that the developers that are sitting in the audience own. It's other people's property.
Correct, yes. And when we talk about meeting the RENA, it's about identifying sites, mostly private property, that have the zoning to accommodate that, your housing targets. But the city is not in the business of building housing. The city doesn't build housing. So we're not talking about the city there's no obligation that the city build that housing. It's
I know,
about
but
making
it's
the
a frequent
land available.
misconception
Yeah.
that there's a lot of people that think that that's what we do, and we don't.
Right, and that's why
And the only other
appreciate that.
point that I want to make is that in the last go-around, there was a significant amount of property that needed to be rezoned. And I'm just trying to figure out where that's going to come from this next go-around. So that's going to be the perplexing question.
Mike?
What is the, what's the income that the categories are based on?
It's based on the area.
median
income, and
And roughly, I don't
I
need
don't have that off the
precise.
top of my head. Stephanie, do you know what the area median is for?
I believe it's about 68,000 for a four-person household.
Yeah, that sounds right. So about 68,000 for a four-person household, and it's based on the Sacramento County median income.
Gotcha, okay. Sitting on SACOG, I've talked about this a lot, so I'm not sure what questions to ask exactly. The one that I have asked before, and might be interesting just for kicking around here, is what is the possibility of a special use designation that applies across the board to all residential property to allow for higher densities if a developer wants to do that?
And that's a potential, that's something we could
I
explore.
mean, wouldn't that effectively max out our potential and keep a buffer of, a maximum size buffer as well?
And
And since we can't compel anybody to comply necessarily with building high density, what's the harm? And I'm asking that sort
Yeah,
of
I
just
think
generally.
one of the things, I think it's an interesting idea, the idea of an overlay, but anytime we do an overlay designation like that, a rezoning, we have to do the analysis, the CEQA analysis of the impacts of that potential densification, right? So I think CEQA would be one big hurdle or factor with a broad sweeping overlay consideration. But I think any ideas that the council has as we move through this process are worth, considering and vetting and, exploring.
Yeah, I just think
So-
that the state has effectively just dumped a problem on us, and why not just take it to the end of the road so that we never have to think about it again? Give them what they want, make everything possible.
We
As long
will-
as they don't make us compel anybody to build it, it's an academic exercise, right? Even if it involves a bunch of CEQA
Yeah,
documentation.
I think, it's a great comment, and we will add it to our list of things to consider. I think it would have to be primarily for undeveloped or underutilized sites. That would be potentially a way to
Why?
target it. Because I think anytime you rezone, even through overlay somebody's property, it changes a lot of things, right? So we'd have to explore it, quite a bit further, and we will add it to our list of ideas. But I'm sure there's a lot of things I'm not thinking about right now, but we'll follow up with you on that.
Okay.
And that overlay, it could also be selectively applied, so it wouldn't be a blanket, but an overlay zone could be one potential solution.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the way that you have special use approvals for certain types of commercial activity. If you could make high-density residential a special use on any residential parcel, it wouldn't be an overlay per se, right?
Yeah, I'll also add that there are a lot of requirements that come with that rezone obligation. On your rezone sites, you have to allow that multifamily by right. It can't be a conditional use, and it can't be subject to CEQA, so it would have to be a permitted use. And so there are just some additional considerations that we'd have to look at.
So if you made it an automatically permitted use, but requiring a request from the landowner, maybe you create a different category of special use approvals where it's a by right thing that a landowner just has to request. And then we can say that everything is zoned for multifamily high density because we will automatically approve it. So I'm being a little flippant here because this whole process has been annoying. So I'll reserve any further comment. Thank you.
Oh, and it's going to get a lot more annoying before it gets better. The only other point that I want to make is when you were referring to the audit that the state is doing on surplus land, and this goes back to some stuff that appeared on local social media a few months ago. And I just want people to understand that the city of Folsom is not in the process of rezoning any federal land, any state-owned land, or other land that is not either owned by the city of Folsom or in private ownership here. If that happens, it's not at the city's request. It's happening at the request of Governor Newsom. I just want that made clear because I don't want to get a whole bunch more emails about, oh my God, what's going to happen at Folsom Prison. So I just want people to understand that.
Does there have any questions?
Councilman Sheldon, do you have anything? Questions?
I have a comment.
Fire away.
You know, I think we should add 2 words to the subject. You know, Reno presentation dash mission impossible. You know, for some of us, I've been for my 12th year now, I've been a staunch advocate in reality, not fantasy, to put people that need these affordable housing in housing because of nothing that they've done bad. It's just that they don't have enough money to have a house. And we've worked our butt off on doing that. And I think we've done good for a city, but we didn't come close to our arena figures in the past. Now you take it and make it harder. And when you say I can zone a property for 30, and I can zone it for affordable housing, but if the developer comes in and decides, no, I don't want it for affordable, I'm going to make it market rate, I have not a thing to say about it. Now, maybe I'm too pessimistic, but I'm a guy that's a realist. I don't just deal in numbers and we crunch it. We did this in 2000. And we still have a very low number of a deficit number of what we need to provide the quality of life for the people that help us in this town. These low-income people do a lot of good for us in this town, my gosh. And we've been unable to meet the numbers. You take example, we got one builds so many units and gives us four accountable numbers. We have another developer that builds 140 units, which are 100 markable, 100 affordable, 40 markable. But we don't have that many people around that will do that. So, I mean, I would try as hard as I could to make those numbers. And I think we have to go around and review every single shelter that we have to find out if we count it or can we not count it. I looked at the numbers and I read the material, and I thought the presentation was well. Mike had a good point. Carrie, you lived through the 2000 deal. So, I don't know. It's another challenge. We'll meet it. We probably won't fulfill it. but we'll meet it and we'll do what we want to do in this town. And that is make a home for the people that need it, that supports this quality of life. Not just to satisfy somebody sitting somewhere high up on a mountaintop saying, I need this many because that's how many I want to come to California. For BS, I'm sorry. I guess maybe I'm not well enough to be too civil, but you got my real feelings on this subject. Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
So if we rezone enough property to accommodate all these units, but nothing gets built, would we still have met our obligation?
Yes, your obligation is to make the zoning available.
Okay. And what about all these accessory dwelling units that are likely to pop up because the state is taking away our ability to impose restrictions? Do those fall in here anywhere and count toward anything?
Yes, we will be counting a reasonable projection of how many accessory dwelling units we think can be built between now and 2029. So you can't just say, okay, well, on every single parcel you can build an ADU, so therefore we have endless numbers. It has to be based on a reasonable projection. So we are doing that. We're going to be analyzing building permit data over the past few years and making a projection that's probably going to increase because of all of the requirements, all of the loosening of requirements for ADUs. But we also have to look at the projected rents of those accessory dwelling units and whether they meet the low income need, or maybe it's possibly the moderate income need. But we do need to kind of really take stock of that and justify what income level are those accessory dwelling units really serving.
In Folsom right now, those ADUs that exist predominantly in the historic district, rent is ballpark $2,000 a month.
Okay.
So I don't think they're gonna fall into either of the two lower categories.
And just a question for Pam, because this is the question that the public is asking. When we go to rezone, we'll be looking at land north of 50 and south of 50, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And our development agreements in the Folsom Plan area identify that changes can be made as a result of our RENA process.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment on this? Seeing no one. Thank you very much, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Okay. Move to our next item, please.
Okay, your next item tonight is the consent calendar. You do have a request to pull item 4.
I'll move the remainder.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Howell?
Yes.
Kozlowski?
Yes.
Sheldon?
Yes.
And Aquino.
Yes.
Okay, your item number 4 is resolution number 10396. This is a resolution in support of the Reducing Crime and Keeping California Safe Act of 2020. And you had Bill Romanelli request to speak on this item. Looks like Chief Hillman's coming down.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Rick Hillman, the police chief, and I'm here tonight first to introduce Bill Romanelli, and we're going to talk to you about the support of the Reducing Crime and Keeping California Safe Act of 2020. Bill will explain this, and then I will give you some facts about Folsom.
Thank you, Chief. Evening, council members. My name is Bill Romanelli. I'm a 20-year Folsom resident, but before I get into this, I think I should also just, in the spirit of transparency, let you know I'm also a paid consultant for the Keeping California Safe initiative. My firm, FSB Public Affairs, is working on this, so I just want to make sure that's a matter of a record before I get into this. I also want to thank Chief Hillman for his help in bringing this agenda item up before the council today. I know he and I have both spoken individually with some of you, and I'm very happy to see that this is getting consideration. I just want to summarize what the initiative is. I know the chief has given you a very comprehensive staff report, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. But the long and the short of it is that this initiative is about fixing some unintended consequences. For about a decade now, the state has been dealing with the unintended consequences of some public safety, I'll say the word reforms, that were couched as vehicles to help reduce prison populations, but they have in fact created a get-out-of-jail-free card for even some of the most violent criminals out there, including sex offenders. And so this initiative is designed to fix those unintended consequences, as I said. I'll just sum it up as the initiative would do 4 things. It would expand the list of violent crimes for which early release is not an option. That includes rape of an unconscious person, sex trafficking of a child, drive-by shootings, and about a dozen other crimes that currently the state of California does not consider as violent. And I can give you a list of those if you're interested. It would also reform the parole system to stop the early release of violent felons and expand parolee oversight and strengthen penalties for parole violations. We do get some questions about that one, and specifically, we're not talking about a one-and-done situation. What the initiative would do is if somebody has violated their parole 3 times, then after the 3rd time, the parole would be revoked for that individual. It would also expand DNA collection to include those convicted of drug theft, domestic violence, and other serious crimes that would help solve some of the cold cases that the state is dealing with, and also help exonerate those who have been wrongly accused. And finally, it would reform theft laws to restore accountability for serial thieves and organized theft rings. You may know this already. The threshold used to be $450. It was raised to over $900 under one of these propositions. And what we see now is serial thieves who can go into a retailer with a calculator in hand, and as long as they don't have more than $949.99 worth of stolen property, it's pretty much a misdemeanor. And they can go back the next day and do the same thing for the same amount, and they can do that over and over and over again. And merchants across the state are just being hammered by that. So, and the chief has, in his staff report, has talked specifically about some of the impacts directly on Folsom from that. So I'll turn it over to him to give you those details.
So as Bill mentioned, organized retail theft has been a problem in the state and here in California. We have seen actual events and crimes where people do go into stores with calculators and they're walking out with a certain amount of goods. They also go into the stores with shopping lists. We see this most occurring at retail chain stores, and these people committing the crimes will go from, say, a Victoria's Secret to another one to another one. They'll travel up the 50 and 80 corridors, going to the Best Buys, the Walmarts, and things like that, targeting specific stores, looking for specific things. We've seen this huge increase since the passage of Proposition 47 in 2011. In Folsom, we've seen crime continue to rise last year by 5%. Most of that was contributed to thefts like larceny, burglary, and auto theft. We've also seen a rise in our aggravated assaults over this last year. One thing our patrol officers have noticed is when they go to clean up homeless encampments, we'll often find stolen property there. And while we deal with that and we'll take action against those people that have committed those crimes, it just reoccurs because it's a revolving door. And they don't get punished. In Folsom last year, there was over $1 million, almost $1.2 million worth of property stolen from the residents and those visiting Folsom. That's up from $865,000 the year before. This year, we've already seen an increase in that number. So we're concerned about stopping these thefts. We have coordinated a lot with other agencies in the region and have installed some equipment to help us stop people. We recently, as of like 2 weeks ago, had a retail theft that occurred. Officers chased the vehicle, and then because there were no other officers available, they let that vehicle go. That vehicle was within an hour involved in a drive-by shooting in the Sacramento area. So the people that are coming and committing these crimes aren't somebody just looking for clothing because they have none. They're not getting food because they don't have any and they're hungry. These are people that are targeting our community as well as many other communities, and they are doing so without serious consequences.
Thank you. Any questions for Bill or Chief Hillman? Mike?
I just will comment that I started my working career off in a department store and have some firsthand experiences with rings of thieves stealing jeans literally from as far apart as we are. they would just run in, take them off the gene wall, and run out because they knew exactly how many to take. Anyway, so it's kind of sad. And Bill, thank you very much for bringing this forward and the work that you're doing. Appreciate it.
Well, now they bring trash bags in so that they can get more. Any other questions?
I think was result of Prop 47, the theft of a firearm, which I think used to always be a felony, is now, maybe it's a misdemeanor if it's under that 950. Does this resolve that?
In that case, you're also looking at federal laws involving firearms and firearm theft. Strictly speaking, as it relates to this initiative, if the firearm itself is worth less than $950, then yes, it would affect that, but it's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, okay. Ernie, have any questions? No. Okay, okay. Do we have a motion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Howell?
Yes.
Kozlowski?
Yes.
Sheldon?
Yes.
And Aquino.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, we are expecting Councilmember Gaylord here momentarily, but we will keep moving and hope he gets here very soon.
Your next item is public hearing, item number 7. This is resolution number 10399 regarding the Empire Ranch specific plan. You do have a recommendation from staff to continue this item to March 24th, and we would need a motion to that effect.
I'll move the item to continue.
Can I ask why that recommendation was made? It seems straightforward.
The applicant couldn't be here this evening and asked for the item to be continued.
Then I will second it.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Howell?
Yes.
Kozlowski?
Yes.
Sheldon?
Yes.
And Aquino.
Yes. Okay, sorry, next item, please.
Your next item is item number 8, Toll Brothers at Folsom Ranch. This is property at the northwest corner of White Rock Road and East Bidwell Street in the Folsom Plan area. The sub-items are resolution number 10400, ordinance 1301, ordinance 1302, ordinance 1303, and ordinance 1304.
Hello.
Hello.
And just, if you could just remember to talk into that microphone so Councilmember, Vice Mayor Sheldon can catch all this.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor Aquino and Councilmember Steve Banks with the Community Development Department. The project before you this evening is the Toll Brothers at Folsom Ranch subdivision project. They are seeking approval of a number of entitlements as listed on the screen, including a general plan amendment, a specific plan amendment, a small lot vesting tentative subdivision map, a plan development permit, development agreement amendments, of which there are 4, and lastly, an inclusionary housing plan. This is a vicinity map, and as you can see, the proposed project site, which is 314 acres in size, is located at the southern portion of the Folsom Plan area. It is bound by East Bidwell Street to the east, the future extension of Mangini Parkway to the north, White Rock Road to the south, and the future extension of Oak Avenue Parkway to the west. This is an aerial photograph showing the topography of the project site, and I'm sure most of you have been to the project site, but it's interesting to see that as you are closer to East Bidwell Street to the east, it's fairly flat, and then as you move further to the west, it becomes fairly hilly quite quickly, and then as you move further to the west, it is generally flat. There's still some smaller hills, but a little more flat in nature as you are closer to Oak Avenue Parkway to the west. As I noted, there are a number of entitlements being requested. The project includes 1,225 total residential units. Of those 1,200 units, 1,011 are age-restricted units, or 55-plus units. 214 of those units are a traditional single-family residential subdivision located in the western portion of the project site. The applicant is seeking approval of a general plan amendment as well as a specific plan amendment. There's some land use boundary changes both within the project site and also outside the project site, but within the Folsom Plan area. There are a number of backbone roadway modifications with this project. There's some improvements to the public trail system within the project area, and there's also a relocation of a neighborhood park within the project to a new location within the plan area. The applicant is also seeking approval of a vesting tentative subdivision map to create 804 residential lots with this application. The remainder of those lots, as part of Phase 2, would come back before this council at a future date for the mapping of Phase 2 of the active adult community. There are a number of amenities with this project, including 3 private amenities within both Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the active adult community. There's also a private amenity proposed with the market rate single-family subdivision. There are 2 dog parks also proposed with this project within the active adult community. The active adult community is proposed to be gated, while the market rate community is supposed to be non-gated. They are proposing approval of a planned development permit as well to deviate from the development standards established within this area. Some of those deviations include a slight increase in lot coverage to accommodate outdoor living spaces in the rear yards of these homes. There are also some reductions in setbacks to accommodate smaller setbacks. The focus of this project is on the outdoor spaces in the project area and not having as large lots with the actual individual homes. So there are a number of trail systems throughout the project area, private amenities, and so again, their focus is on the open spaces and the spaces around the homes, not necessarily providing larger yards for their residents. They've submitted architecture and design for Phase 1 of the active adult community, and also for there are 2 types of products within the active adult community. There are single-family detached homes, and they're all single-story homes, and they're also attached townhomes, and there are 15 master plans combined among the single-family detached and attached product line. There are 4 development agreement amendments proposed with this project to acknowledge and document the entitlements proposed with this project, and also to document the changes to the public park within the project area. And lastly, there's an inclusionary housing plan. The applicant's intent is to pay an in lieu fee to the city, which would go into the city's housing trust fund to help fund affordable housing projects, like you were discussing a few minutes ago. This is an exhibit or a site plan of the proposed project. The area to the east, as you see here, is what is known as Regency Phase 1. So this is the first phase of the active adult community. Phase 2, which is not proposed to be mapped this evening, but we mapped at a future date, is located just to the west of Phase 1. Again, this is the active adult community Phase 2. And then further to the west, you have traditional single-family residential subdivision. Again, this is a non-gated community in the traditional single-family subdivision to the west. The active adult community is proposed to be gated. There are 6 access points to the proposed project, 1 off of Oak Avenue Parkway, 4 off of Mangini Parkway, and 1 off of East Bidwell Street. There are no access points, vehicle access points off of White Rock Road. As I noted, there's an extensive trail system, public trail system, that goes throughout the project site, shown with the red dashed lines on the site plan. Those are public trails accessible to the public. For the public to get into the private community, there are gates, and so those gates will be restricted to members of the active adult community, but the public can use the trail system in and around that area. There are access points to the market rate subdivision, and that will be accessible to the public into the market rate subdivision. As I noted, there are 3 private amenities proposed with this project. A fairly large clubhouse facility is proposed in the eastern portion of the project site, as shown in this triangle area on the site plan. Phase 2 of Regency, or the active adult community, will also have a private amenity on the south side of Regency Parkway, and the market rate community will also have a private amenity for their residents as well. There are also 2 private dog parks in the age-restricted community, one just south of Mangini Parkway in the northeast corner of the project site, and the other just north of Regency Parkway in Phase 2 of the project site. So those are the highlights of the site plan for you. As I noted, the applicant's requesting approval of a general plan amendment and a specific plan amendment. The purpose of this is they are developing less lots within this project area than were allotted by the specific plan that was approved in 2011. So they're developing 233 less lots than were anticipated for this project area. And so they're using the density transfer policy established by this specific plan to move those 233 lots to other locations outside of the project area, but within the Folsom plan area. And what this will result is an increase in density in some of these parcels, which in turn requires a change in the zoning designation or the specific plan designation to accommodate that increased density. And as I mentioned, there's a density transfer. As you can see, the units going to various locations, primarily around the town center area, where we would expect the more dense locations to be supported. This is a project site, and I want to touch on the major changes to the project site with this general plan and specific plan amendment. Number one, there's currently medium density multifamily property shown in the orange color here. That is being shifted more towards the town center. There's also multifamily low-density property that is being shifted down just north of White Rock Road with this proposal. Otherwise, it's single-family high-density throughout the project. There's some minor modifications to open space to avoid sensitive areas as well. I mentioned there's a number of changes to the roadway system as per the 2011 Folsom Plan Area Specific Plan. Number one, as shown in A on the left-hand side here, there was a north-south roadway connecting future Mangini Parkway to White Rock Road. That road is being eliminated with this proposal. There's also a roadway going right through the middle of the open space preserve, the Oak Woodland area, and that is being eliminated with this proposal. And lastly, there's an overcrossing on the western portion of the project site that's being eliminated with this proposal. There are also a couple of overcrossings being added to this proposal, and those are shown at C in the far right of the exhibit. I think these are crossing the open space areas. In terms of the trail system, they're actually adding 0.3 miles of Class 1 trails within the project area, and that's located on the south side of Mangini Parkway in the western portion of the project site. So otherwise, the trail, the length of trails remains unchanged. Again, they're adding 0.3 miles total to the existing trail system that was approved. In terms of public parkland, there was supposed to be a 10-acre local park within the, neighborhood park within the project area, as shown in green on the left-hand side here. The applicant is moving that park, actually moving it to two locations. 8 acres will be shifted to the west to a location where there's already a 2-acre local park, and that will become the new neighborhood park, 10 acres in size, consistent with what was originally proposed in the project area. The other 2 acres will be shifted more towards the town center to an existing 1-acre site, increasing that local park up to 3 acres in size. I would also note that the Parks and Rec Commission reviewed this proposal regarding the shifting of the parkland. They were supportive of that proposal. There are a number of tentative subdivision maps proposed with this project. As I mentioned, this is Regency Active Adult Community. They're proposing to map 590 units in this area today, with the remaining units to be mapped with Phase 2. Staff has reviewed these lots, and they all meet the minimum requirements of the Subdivision Map Act. Shifting over to the market rate subdivision, they are proposing 214 single-family residential lots. These lots are slightly larger in size, and again, these lots also meet the requirements of the Subdivision Map Act. This is an exhibit just showing the different lot sizes throughout the subdivision. There are actually 7 different lot sizes spread throughout the subdivision, 5 lot sizes in the active adult community to the east, and 2 different lot sizes in the market rate community to the west. This is a phasing exhibit provided by the applicant. The first phase proposed with this project would be to the east with Regency Phase 1, as shown in the yellow, green, and pink areas. Phase 2 would be to the far west. It would be the traditional subdivision. And then the last phase would be Regency Phase 2 in the central portion of the project site. A traffic analysis was done for this project. It looked at a number of study intersections in and around the project site, as well as other locations throughout the Folsom Plan area. I've listed the daily trips, as well as the AM and peak hour trips. The study concluded there would be no new impacts that were not previously considered with the EAR and ES prepared for the Folsom Plan Area Specific Plan in 2011. And the traffic consultant is here this evening if you have any specific questions regarding the traffic analysis. In terms of measure open space, the applicant is actually proposing to provide 2.2 additional acres of measured W open space above and beyond what is required. And we're certainly supportive of that. Oak tree preservation and removal, this was a topic that was discussed at length at the Planning Commission meeting in February, and for good reason. The plan for the oak tree preservation and removal was established in 2011 as part of the Folsom Plan Area Specific Plan and the environmental documents that were reviewed and approved at that time. There are 642 acres of oak woodland habitat identified for preservation with the specific plan. And there were specific mitigation and objectives and policies established as part of the specific plan. And in reviewing this project, we focused on this greatly, and there was a lot of discussion about this at the Planning Commission in February, as I mentioned. And I have an exhibit I'll share with you in a second that shows the different types of oak trees in the plan area and how those were evaluated when the specific plan was reviewed and approved in 2011. So this is an exhibit from the specific plan, and there are essentially 3 different types of canopies or trees within the plan area. The areas shown in blue and yellow are oak tree woodlands in a preserve area. And the intent of the specific plan is these areas were not supposed to be touched or modified, and that development was intended to stay out of these areas shown in blue and yellow. We also have canopy areas outside this preserve area, and those are shown in the orange color. And we also have isolated oak trees, and those are areas shown, it's a little harder to see, but there are red dots scattered throughout this area. And in terms of the canopy areas outside the preserve area, it was expected that there would be impacts to those oak trees in those areas on development parcels. And policies and procedures were set up to mitigate for those impacts to the canopy trees outside the preserve areas. And there are 5 specific mitigation measures set up in the Folsom Plan Area Specific Plan for which the applicant is required to mitigate the impact to the oak trees. And we believe the applicant, with the plan, which I'll share with you in a moment, is consistent with the objective of the Folsom Plan Area Specific Plan in terms of their mitigation obligations. The applicant did also prepare an individual study of the individual oak trees shown in red within the project area. And those oak trees, the individual oak trees, are actually required to be mitigated per the tree preservation ordinance, which the council recently updated and adopted. There are a little under 18 acres of oak woodland on the project site, of which a little over 10 acres are proposed to be preserved. The applicant has also identified a little under ½ acre of area they are attempting to preserve as they go through the approval process. There are 90 individual or isolated oak trees on the project site. The applicant is preserving 22 of those oak trees, and there are another 8 that have identified as having the potential to preserve. There are a number of constraints on the project site. For those of you who visited the project site, there's a varied topography on the project site, which represents a challenge. The slope varies from 0 to 15% throughout the project site, with elevation that ranges from 338 feet above sea level to 428 feet above sea level. The finished grade is going to be 368 feet to 394 feet above sea level. And cuts and fill, we're looking at cuts of up to 51 feet and significant fills of up to 34 feet. This is an exhibit provided by the applicant. This is their oak tree preservation and removal plan. The areas of green are the preservation areas, and the trees shown in dark green are the areas, the trees are required to be preserved per this specific plan. The areas shown in green without the crosshatch, these are areas the applicant has identified as potential areas to plant mitigation trees for their impact for removing oak trees on the project site. The areas shown in blue and pink pink here are areas where there's cut and fill of less than 5 feet. So those are areas where we think there's potential to preserve oak trees. And specifically, if we come to the far west portion of the project site, there's a grove of trees or a canopy of trees in this area where you see the pink and the blue. Again, these are areas where there's less than 5 feet in cut and fill, where there may be potential to preserve oak trees. The areas shown in white, those are areas where you have over 5 feet of either cut or fill, which makes it extremely challenging to preserve oak trees in those particular areas. I'd also add the applicant has identified a number of oak trees. It's shown in the purple circles, which are a little bit hard to see in the western portion of the project site here, and a canopy area here. And again, these are areas where they're looking to preserve specific trees or preserve areas around the canopy of trees. An addendum to the 2011 EIR-ES was prepared with this project. The addendum concluded there were no new impacts that were not previously identified with the original EIR and EIS, and that the original conclusions of the EIR-ES still remain valid. Sent Environmental is here this evening. You have specific questions regarding their review of the environmental document. As I noted earlier, the Planning Commission reviewed this project at its February 19th meeting. There were no members from the public that attended this particular meeting. The focus of this discussion at the 19th meeting was the tree preservation and removal plan. And we spent a great deal of time talking about the goals and policies from the specific plan and how it was staff's determination the applicant had complied with the goals and policies of this specific plan in terms of removal and as well as preservation. The Planning Commission did evaluate and discuss the potential to preserve a specific grove or canopy of oak trees. And I'll hop back a little bit. There's this grove or canopy of oak trees in the southwest corner of the project site. And they discussed this area a lot and whether there was a potential to save oak trees in this area. And since that meeting, the applicant has been talking to city staff, and I believe after my presentation, the applicant has a potential solution to look into preserving more of the oak trees than the Planning Commission already thought were going to be preserved in this specific area. So I'll let the applicant delve into that in a few minutes. After a lengthy, thorough, thoughtful discussion, the Planning Commission did vote 6-1 to recommend approval of the project to the City Council this evening. And lastly, I'd like to finish off with some site photographs. This is a view looking east towards El Dorado Hills. This is a view looking northeast across East Bidwell Street. This is actually one of the preserve areas. This is the area where all these trees will be preserved on the project site. And this is that grove of oak trees, or the canopy of oak trees that I referenced earlier, where the applicant, I think, does have a solution to try and save some of these trees this evening. And this is a lot of the discussion at the Planning Commission level was focused on this particular canopy of oak trees. And with that, we do forward the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval of the project. As always, I'm happy to answer questions. I also have a lot of other staff members who are involved in the preparation of the staff report who are happy to answer questions.
We'll start with Councilmember Gaylord.
Thank you. I just had on that last slide, was the one you were talking about, was that the upper grove or the lower grove?
This is the grove located in the southwest corner.
But not on the park, but below.
This is this right here in the orange and in the purple. That's that grove of oak trees.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any questions for Steve?
Just one thing that you kind of went over earlier in the presentation about which entrances are gated. Are both ends of Regency Parkway gated?
Yes. There are 5 entrances into the Regency the age-restricted community. I'm sorry, the 4 entrances, and they're all gated.
Okay, so
Yes.
the 2 entrances that are into the center section and the eastern section of the 3 developments.
Yes.
Those are both gated.
Yes.
Okay, so the walking, bike paths, are those gated at all? Or is there free access?
There's free access to the trails that the Class 1 trails that I showed in red on the master plan exhibit. That's access to the public. If those people or residents from the age-restricted community wish to access those trails, they can, and then get back in. There'll be a restricted gate access at various points. But the public, it's not the intent for the public to go into the gated community and access their private clubhouses and their private streets in that community.
Okay, thank you.
Gary? Good, thank you. Okay, if the applicant would like to come forward?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Scott Esping with Toll Brothers, Vice President. I oversee the operations for the Sacramento Division. And I have with me my colleague Greg Van Dam, who's also Vice President, and he oversees the land. We didn't bring a PowerPoint presentation. We wanted to keep this short. We understand that the Planning Commission went really long, and we've had a chance to go over individually over this project. And I understand a lot of you have seen the video, the Planning Commission video. So we really want to talk about just a solution and kind of what we're all about here. I'll make this really quick. Toll, this is the first active adult community that Toll is looking to build in California. We've been looking to build in California for years now, and we fell in love with Folsom. Once we saw the specific plan, we knew that this was the project that really called for an active adult community, but also just there's a lot of very important aspects about that specific ranch that we really fell in love with. The trail system. Folsom has a trail system unlike no other city in this area. Our buyers are looking for an active lifestyle. Trails are great for that. The oak tree and the preserves. We fell in love with the amount of acres and the entire specific plan of the oak tree preserves. And we feel that's a very important important aspect of active adult lifestyle. People want to live in a community that they can love, that they have pride in. And the specific plan really, it's a pretty amazing community. So when we saw this, we easily identified that this is a place we wanted to be. We have an active adult portion. Our original plan was we were looking to do an active adult in all 3 phases, and we ended up with our plan to have traditional on phase 3 and then active adult on phase 1 and 2. And that was with our pre-application that we submitted to the city. In order to be compliant with the specific plan, we did the pre-submittal, worked with the city, we identified land plan. We got some comments back from the school district and the city, and we worked with them throughout the whole process to make sure that we were being compliant with this specific plan. Toll feels that with our request today, our entitlement request, there is a significant amount of benefits to the community that we're really excited about, and we want to go over some of these benefits. So Toll Brothers, we take a lot of pride in our community design and our architecture, and one of the things we find unique about our active adult portion is there are 5 different product lines, and each product has 3 plans. Each plan has 4 elevations, so there's 60 different plan elevation combinations seen throughout our active adult portion. We take a lot of pride in that because our ultimate goal is when you drive through our community, you're not going to see the same home over and over again. We don't believe in cookie cutter communities. We believe in adding value to the communities we come into in Folsom with the rich history and the beauty of just nature, and we really wanted to bring an architecture that you guys can be proud of. Another thing, and for the traditional side, we have 2 different product lines, and there's 7 plans total in 4 elevations, so there's 28 different plan and elevation combos. So again, you're not going to see the same plan over and over again, and we feel that adds a lot of value. We've also taken and looked at the shops and some of the recent approvals for commercial, and we've taken the traditional home and we've modernized it a little bit, not to the point where it's ultra modern, but to the point that's complementing what is going into this specific plan. So we're trying to be complementary. As Steve mentioned, that there's 10 acres of parkland that was moved within the specific plan to other locations, but we are also adding 8.5 acres of private parkland within the community. The active adult has a portion where we're going to have a 18,000 square foot rec center. We have 2 dog parks. We have an amphitheater area that we're looking to build, and then in the traditional portion, we have a 1.5 acre private rec center, and that's going to be open to the public. It's going to be built by Toll Brothers and maintained by the HOA, so there's no city responsibility. So Toll is still contributing to the 10 acres of parkland, and we're going to pay for our fees, but we're also going to be adding 8.5 of additional parkland for the entire specific plan. We are also, as mentioned, we're going to add 2.2 acres of additional Measure W open space. We feel that's an added benefit because open space here is a beautiful area. It gives us additional place to mitigate for the oak trees. Product segmentation is what we feel is a benefit to the specific plan. This is the first active adult, just full community that's going into the specific plan. And we feel that this is a segment that hasn't been, that's underrepresented in Folsom. You have Heritage down the street in El Dorado County, but we feel that an active adult in Folsom, there's a really strong appeal. And there's a lot of benefit to bring an active adult. For instance, is for traffic. Active adult buyers, it's smaller households. You're less than two people per household, so the trips are significantly lower. You have retired residents, they're not driving during high peak times. They're driving and during the day, and there's the traffic. It actually reduces the traffic. Less demand on the infrastructure, yet we're still covering our fair share of the portion of the infrastructure costs with the specific plan. School fees, we are still contributing to the school fees. We're paying a commercial rate, but we're not putting any kids into the local schools. So there is an added benefit, and that's a reduction of about 600 students in that local area. The nice benefit is that our buyers, with all the history we've done, looked at with all different Regency communities, is a lot of our buyers, prospects, they love to volunteer. Volunteerism is very huge, and so with the local schools nearby, the middle school, high school, and elementary school, there's a lot of volunteerism that happens in the local school. So we find that as an added community benefit. Another benefit is that active adult buyers, they have a high disposable income. And a lot of times they do spend the money locally. And I know that's very important because the Palladio is nearby, the town center's coming in.